I believe very, very strongly that we need to leave this world better than we found it. The economic disparity in this country has gotten to such a terrible degree. I want to steer us back in that direction and focus on financial inequality and getting to a tax code that actually works for working families, not so much for billionaires and special interest groups. That's one of the other reasons why I'm running for Congress, because I'm not afraid of mean tweets. I'm not bothered by upsetting an old man from Florida. He's not a constituent of the 1st District of Nebraska.
Educate, inform, inspire. The Dan Parsons Show, a podcast that lifts up instead of tearing down.
Hey, welcome to the hottest political podcast in Nebraska, The Dan Parsons Show. I am your host, Dan Parsons. Hey, coming up on today's show, we'll interview Eric Moyer, candidate for the Democratic nomination for Congress in Nebraska's 1st congressional district. But before I introduce Eric, a shout out to our Friends of Dan, our Patreon support team. If you'd like to support the #1 political podcast in Nebraska with your hard-earned cash, hop on over to patreon.com, look up the Dan Parsons Show, and join the fun. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, here's my interview with Eric Moyer, candidate for the Democratic nomination for Congress in Nebraska's 1st congressional district. Enjoy. Well, it is my pleasure to introduce Eric Moyer, candidate for the Democratic nomination for Congress, Nebraska's 1st district, which our audience knows includes not only Lincoln, but Bellevue, Fremont, Norfolk. Obviously, the seat is currently held by Congressman Mike Flood. Eric, what a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the Dan Parsons Show.
Thanks so much, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate you covering the race.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's really important. That's what we do. And as our audience knows, we try to lift up, not tear down. This isn't cable news and, giving everyone a voice. The congressman's been on the show many times and will again. So we absolutely want to cover this race. Well, let's start with your background and why you want to serve in Congress. Eric was born and raised in Madison, small town in northeast Nebraska. You hold multiple degrees from the University of Nebraska, Bachelor of Arts in Theater, and a master's degree in Marketing, Communication, and Advertising. You spent nearly a decade building renewable energy projects throughout the Midwest. Before renewable energy, Eric worked as an actor, marketer, event manager, rancher, and Sunday school teacher. Man, that's a hell of a resume, Eric.
Well, I've been around. What can I tell you?
Yeah.
I use rancher as that's a pretty broad term, but really I was just a ranch hand.
Okay.
My first day actually at my Zebro cattle was cleaning out feed bunks with a shovel.
There you go. There you go.
Done that task. I think it was meant to break me because I started working on that at 7 a.m. and I had cleared about 100 yards of feed bunk by 11. And I think the expectation that I was going to turn around and just get in my car and never come back after that experience. But I stuck with it. It was, that was one of the more fun and rewarding jobs that I had as a teenager growing up.
Cool.
I'm really grateful to have that experience.
Yeah, I think all Nebraskans should have that experience, whether it's that or detasseling. Obviously, a lot of us did that growing up. So, yeah. Well, maybe my first question, Eric, why do you want to serve in Congress?
Well, it's not a decision I came to lightly. It's actually something that, I mulled over for a number of months in conversations with both party leaders as well as family and friends about whether or not this might be the right step for me. Ever since high school, I was a Boy Scout and I pursued getting all the way to the rank of Eagle Scout. And it's very much a community action sort of trajectory once you head down that path and trying to leave the world better than you found it. And I really took those lessons to heart. Whether it was my Eagle Scout project of park improvements, just going all over Madison, painting fences and planting flowers and rose bushes and what have you, all up to installing solar modules to try to bring the cost of energy down for rural communities. I believe very, very strongly that we need to leave this world better than we found it. And one of the ways that I hope to do that in particular, and a lot of what motivated me to get into the race, was trying to bring down the temperature of our political discourse and getting away from so many of these sort of, dare I say, toxic and vitriolic social sort of issues, and instead focusing on what really matters, left, right, and center, which is the economy. The economic issues for working families in this country have been given short shrift for the sake of these wedge issues that really don't put food on the table. I mean, and not to minimize, because after all, a lot of these things people are very, very passionate about. But what really gets lost in the shuffle is that the cost of milk is rising, the cost of eggs is rising, the cost of tortilla chips is through the roof. I mean, $7.50 for a bag of Doritos is ridiculous. And we need to really focus on the nuts and bolts of governing and these kitchen table issues that are impacting American families, not just in Nebraska, but in Minnesota, Colorado, Indiana. Everybody's hurting the same. And, the economic disparity in this country has gotten to such a terrible degree because, frankly, I think the electorate has taken its eyes off the ball. And I want to steer us back in that direction and focus on financial inequality and getting to a tax code that actually works for working families, not so much for billionaires and special interest groups.
Yeah, that's important. Well, you mentioned political discourse, and of course, we're a few days now removed from this horrific event, but let's talk about the news headline of the day, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, maybe the most prominent young person in American political media, certainly online. So your thoughts?
Well, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy for his family. It's a tragedy for America, left, right, and center. This impacts all of us. We have a First Amendment, which guarantees the right to free speech. That doesn't necessarily mean I have to agree with it, and I disagreed vociferously with virtually every position that Charlie had taken over the years. Certainly those that I was aware of, I didn't agree with. But I certainly believe that he had every right to hold those positions and to say them publicly and to be able to debate them. And, for his voice to be silenced in this manner, just as Melissa Hartman and her husband, Mark,
in Minnesota.
And John Hoffman and his wife, we're better than this as a nation. We should not seek out violence to settle our differences. It plays well on primetime television, and it might be salacious enough, to have this vitriolic rhetoric that's going to generate views. But this is not how we govern a nation, and it's not how we come together as a people. It's truly, truly horrifying. I pray for his family. I pray for everyone here in this country right now who's hurting, and for those who feel threatened on the left and the right. This is not us. We're better than this.
Yeah. Thanks. Well, let's talk about some issues. Let's talk about immigration and the announcement from Governor Jim Pillen just recently that the state of Nebraska has agreed to work with the Trump administration to create Nebraska's version of Alligator Alcatraz, a federal immigration detention center in McCook, Nebraska. And I guess, again, keeping in with this idea that the federal government is in the business of naming these things with catchy little names, the Cornhusker Clink. Anyway, I think that's offensive to begin with. But anyway, I don't want to give my opinion. I want to hear your opinion on what does this mean for Nebraska, and just what's your thoughts about the whole immigration policy?
Well, for too long, we've created a second class of citizens in this country. And I say citizens because, let's face it, friends, we're all immigrants here. Yeah. I recently learned my middle name, it's a family name, is Hamilton. And, I come from a family of attorneys. I'm the black sheep that studied advertising and marketing communication instead. But A family of attorneys nonetheless. And we assumed that it was, out of honor for Alexander Hamilton and that we were big fans of him. No, it had nothing to do with that. It's because when we stepped off the boat in Canada, it was in Hamilton, Ontario. That's the origin of the name. My middle name is Hamilton because that's where my great grandfather stepped off the boat, first Moyer in America, and he took the middle name of Hamilton in honor of his new start in the new world. That's it.
Very
That's
cool.
the story.
Yeah.
We're all immigrants in this nation. We all came here from somewhere in the hopes that we would have access to the American dream. And if you look at the ICE enforcement, what does it all go back to? I'm a cause and effect kind of guy. I don't like to look at the, getting lost in the chaos of the now, but instead looking back to the cause and effect. What brought us to this point? Broken immigration system. We have millions of people living and working in this country as productive members of society who are being vilified and persecuted because of a draconian immigration process that doesn't allow for a path to citizenship. For hardworking families and individuals that come here with the intention of doing good and generating wealth and having access to the same opportunities all of us enjoy. They're not doing anything wrong by coming here. They're not doing anything wrong when they come across the border and they apply for asylum and access and ask for entry. That's not violating the law. Obviously, there's nuanced details like overstaying a visa and things like this that have to be sorted out, but that's what our court system is for. And when we're throwing that out, baby with the bathwater, and just wholesale deporting people, we're ignoring due process, and it erodes the very fabric of what we are as a nation, which is a nation of laws that observes these rules, these guardrails that make our society one of the safest, best, and most wonderfully prosperous in the world has ever seen. And we have to fix this. We've been talking about it since the 1980s. I remember watching a debate between Ronald Reagan and George Herbert Walker Bush. That's W's dad, for those who don't remember. And you would think it was a debate between AOC and Bernie. I mean, the policy discussion was so lively and so broad-minded. To look at where we've come, where we've gotten over the last 40 years is really disheartening. Yeah. And we need to deal with the root cause of the problem, which is that we don't provide people with a realistic path towards citizenship and being able to come to this country and immigrate legally. We just don't do it. And that's why so many people here are in violation of the law. We have to fix the system.
Tariffs, the other issue I've been talking to all of the congressional candidates about. According to a report from the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, Nebraska experienced the most significant GDP loss in the nation during the first quarter of 2025 at 6.1%. John Hanson, who's been on the show several times, president of the Nebraska Farmers Union, said he believes the country is facing the worst farming financial crisis since the 1980s. How is Nebraska being impacted by the president's trade war?
In a word, very, very badly. John Hanson's a friend, and he's got a brilliant mind for the ag market in this state. And he's been around a while and really knows the market. So when he says that we're facing the worst economic conditions since the 1980s, believe him. We basically have three factors that are absolutely decimating the ag economy right now. We have monopolistic tactics from a small group of organizations which more or less control the market, as well as monopolistically dominate input costs, which are through the roof. And then we also have, of course, the tariffs, which have stripped our producers of their markets overseas. No corn, no soybean. And we're facing, and this is the third leg of this stool, a bumper crop. Where is all this grain going to go? in light of these tariffs. We've had stratospheric input costs, which have squeezed every last ounce of profit out of what farmers are able to make from this work. And now we're stripping them of any possibility of being able to sell this grain overseas. It's going to cause the cost of grain to plummet if they're going to be able to sell it at all. And, how does this benefit? Who does this actually benefit? Well, it benefits the organizations that can weather the storm. And incentive payments that come from the federal government aren't going to help farmers because they go right back into the pockets of the big ag commodity brokers that they're indebted to for other inputs. Like, this is not good, folks. And I don't think we're paying nearly enough attention to it, despite being in an ag state, to the damage that's being done by these tariffs. They didn't work in the 1930s. They made the Depression far worse, and they're going to do the same thing today. Donald Trump needs to walk this back, and members of Congress need to find their spine and lean on him to do so. It's unfortunately, our leadership right now doesn't feel inclined to do so. That's a real shame, because I don't know who else is going to step up. That's one of the other reasons why I'm running for Congress, because I'm not afraid of mean tweets. I'm not bothered by upsetting an old man from Florida. He's not a constituent of the 1st District of Nebraska, so he can get as mad as he wants.
The other question that we've been talking about here on the show is the impact here in Nebraska from the Big Beautiful Bill. What will the impact on Nebraska be, either positive or negative, from the sweeping legislation that Congress passed recently and the president signed?
Well, I'm not saying it's all bad, but you really got to look to find anything good in that bill for the people of the state of Nebraska. One of the biggest things would be, the $197 billion that was cut from SNAP benefits, and how that actually impacts, first of all, working families directly, but also our farmers. Once again, it's another hit to small farms in the state of Nebraska and our ag producers that are producing food that go into that program that is purchased by people who are struggling financially in rural Nebraska. This is bad, folks. It's bigger than bad. I don't believe that the intention was necessarily to be cruel, but the cruelty of this bill will be felt immediately once all of these elements, which are on a phased rollout, finally do take effect. In totality, it is going to be devastating for the state of Nebraska. Don't even get me started on Medicaid expansion, but it's Medicaid expansion. I mean, we're talking about kicking people off of Medicaid who are able-bodied and can work. Okay. Able-bodied people in Nebraska who can work, that don't get a W-2, farmers. That's who's getting kicked off of Medicaid. And we need to face this issue head on, and we need advocates in Congress that are going to stand up for our agriculture community and for this ag business that is going to be struggling across the board as a result of this legislation. We've got to walk it back. We've got to fix it sooner than later, before the real pain hits.
Yeah. One of the other issues, Eric, we're talking with Eric Moyer, candidate for Nebraska's 1st congressional district. Election, how many months off now, Eric? Not that many. The primary's in May. We're already in September. So anyway, it'll continue to go fast at this point. After you get past Labor Day, it seems like it steamrolls pretty fast. The Epstein Files. Congress is trying to straddle this fence of being transparent and trying to get some of the answers about the Epstein Files. Meanwhile, the administration just continues to stonewall, even though President Trump ran on a platform of exposing the deep state and releasing the Epstein Files. That's a sliver of his voters who really believed that was going to happen. And so now there's been some revelations of President Trump sending a birthday card 22 years ago to Jeffrey Epstein, and somehow there was some conspiracy 22 years ago to have a fake letter from Donald Trump put into this celebration of a birthday card. So anyway, all of that to say, what I have been champion on this show is what's being forgotten is the victims, those poor children, hundreds of them who were victimized by this pedophile, and now being re-victimized because it's all coming back up again, and they're not getting any justice. So anyway, your thoughts on Congress's role in this scandal?
Well, when victims come forward, we have a duty to believe them. Full stop. And I think that it's unfortunate that so many folks in Congress have, failed to recognize the importance of, there's the Epstein Files Transparency Act. That thing needs to get passed. It needs to get through. It needs to get passed. And these files need to see the light of day. That's it. It's long past time. Going back to the letter that that Democrats supposedly created to embarrass Trump 20, 30 years before he even expressed any political aspirations. Yeah. That's a wild scenario.
That's a hell of a conspiracy. Yeah.
I tell you, that's really thinking ahead, because apparently Democrats have a crystal ball. But I think the absurdity of this has gone on long enough. It is time to call a spade and recognize that Donald Trump is inextricably linked to Jeffrey Epstein. Full stop. They're friends. There's video. There's photos. There's documentation. They were close pals. Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophilic predator, a creep. And that is well documented, well understood. He was, his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, has been tried and convicted. There is no doubt. These things happen. These women are victims. Their stories must be told. And the individuals, the perpetrators responsible, must be brought to light without fear or favor or regard for their political affiliation. Enough is enough. The files need to come out. We as a nation must bring this to the light of day. We absolutely owe it to ourselves and to every victim everywhere, not just of Jeffrey Epstein, but every victim, to bring this to light.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the political meat of this conversation, Eric. The seat that you're running for is considered safely Republican by the Nonpartisan Center for Politics, the Cook Political Report. Congressman Flood has won his past two elections by 20 and 16 points, respectively. So how do you beat Congressman Flood?
Boy, that's a great question, isn't it? I that a lot. How are you going to beat him?
What's the secret sauce, Eric?
That's the secret sauce, right? I've hinted around about this in the past. I don't really want to share too much detail, but the cat is somewhat out of the bag when I'm, conducting events all over rural Nebraska. I think that, in the past, Democrats that have approached this race have, locked onto a strategy where we're really focused on running up the vote numbers in, the urban areas, here in Lincoln. And to be sure, those votes matter. And Democratic vote is strong, and there's a lot of support for my candidacy so far. It's very, very encouraging. But what I find most heartening is the conversations that I have has been the conversations that I've had outstate. And, that's where I grew up. That's my home. I'm not a native to Lincoln. I moved here in 2007. But I grew up in northeast Nebraska in a town of 1,200 people. Those are my roots, and that's my family. Those are my friends. And, I'm not just, open to having conversations with folks in rural Nebraska. I'm looking forward to it. Visiting Norfolk, visiting, Stanton, places like that don't even show up on a map, like Enola, where my mom grew up and went to grade school.
Nice.
It's those parts of Nebraska that to me are where this race is won and lost. And, through a robust, event schedule, I'd like to be able to cut through all the cloud and confusion that's going to be on mass media and all the ads and the billboards and the nonsense, and just have conversations with voters. Because I think that's so much of what's been lost in race after race after race, cycle after cycle, is that we're so focused on the mass media approach and the soundbite culture that we've gotten into, no thanks to social media. And getting back to, kitchen table issues, conversations in coffee shops, and meeting with voters where they are. I think we can do a world of good by sitting down face to face and sharing a cup of coffee. That's why there's coffee mugs available for sale on my website.
Nice. Well, that was going to kind of be my exit question, Eric, is how can our audience learn more about your campaign? How can they get involved? Talk about that a little bit.
Well, as much as I decry social media, I'm on every platform, just about. So you can find us on X, you can find us on Blue Sky, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. But you can also find us, preferably on our website at ericmoyerforcongress.com. Head on over. We've got a shop. You can purchase T-shirts, mugs, hats, yard signs. We try to make it easy to rep the brand, so to speak. And one of the things that you're going to find on that website is our, the campaign slogan, which was very carefully thought out, which is Nebraska Strong, Together. It's the last time we weathered a flood. That was the slogan, Nebraska Strong.
That's right.
But we're tacking on together because left, right, and center, we need a voice that considers the needs of everyone in this district. I want to be that voice. I'm here to help. And I know that we can be stronger, that we can be better as a state if we work together. We can do anything. We've done it before. We'll do it again. Head on over to the website, find out more, volunteer for the campaign. Please support us.
Very good. Well, we'll make sure we put that email address in the notes of the show, Eric. And this won't be one and done. Like we said, we got a lot of time before the May primary and next year's general election in November. So don't be a stranger. And we wish you the best of luck out on the trail.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Dan. I really appreciate your time today.
Hey, thanks, Eric, for jumping on the pod with me today. Best of luck on your run for Congress. Hey, and don't forget to show us some love and hit the subscribe button on our YouTube page. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks to the Parsons team who made this show possible. Chase Porter, our executive producer, Ike Samanis, producer and graphic design, Penology Tech Solutions, and Kim Remington, Parsons PR's director of operations. And thanks to each of you for your support and for tuning in. Okay, that's today's show. Go do good things. I'm Dan Parsons.